Engage. Disrupt. Adapt. Repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to this edition of Pure Reinvention, where we create space for the unexpected by inspiring a reinvention lifestyle. I'm really excited this month to actually debut our next quarter. Our next quarter is Simplify. We've done a great job of pulling some quotes, which I think you will really enjoy, which will really help to highlight where we think three really important priorities are in the simplification process. So let's listen to those now.
Detroit was dimensional on many different levels. There were 170,000 creditors. There was $18.5 billion in debt, a pension system that was $3.5 billion underfunded, and a city that was, in terms of what bankruptcy experts called service delivery insolvent, which really means that it wasn't functioning as a city.
So in this particular segment, I think what's really interesting here is Judge Rosen had an almost overwhelming and daunting task ahead of him. There were so many issues that the city of Detroit was facing that it really became very tricky and very complicated as to which issue to focus on. And as Judge Rosen said, when you get to an entity that is basically non-functional, right? Detroit was a city that became a non-functional city for all intents and purposes. You kind of just throw up your hands and say, I don't even know where to start. The problem seems so big. And in many cases, one of the reasons that we don't really attempt to move a reinvention project ahead is because we really don't know where to start. It just seems too big. And so that's why the simplification word was added as step 3 in the reinvention process, because once there's the disruption, once there's the ownership, you're willing to accept and own, now you're beginning to look within and say, okay, what do I need to do? And in Judge Rosen's case, it became very clear that he had to simplify to better understand what work he needed to do. Many people don't know that there are a lot of people that were working on the Detroit bankruptcy, and Judge Rosen had a very particular piece that he was working on. But even the solution that Judge Rosen found could really be reduced to a very simple picture. And in fact, that picture now hangs in the Detroit Institute of Art as an example of how Judge Rosen was not only able to simplify the concept of what needed to take place in his particular piece of the Detroit bankruptcy story, but he could actually draw a picture which helped other people to understand. And so in the simplification process, as what Judge Rosen has taught us, remember, what is that one single thing you're working on? That one single thing, not 100. And can you reduce that one single thing to a picture that will help people to understand?
And so that was the genesis of then this rebranding, which we did in 2016, where we went from the Wieland Daveco Corporation. It's a name that's hard to say. Is it Weiland or Wieland? It had a hyphen in it. It was a hard website address. Just so many things about it branding wise that were difficult, and we just simplified it and we rolled out in 2016 Wieland. A very simple name with a very simple iconic W logo, and all of that has really served our marketing efforts well and really kind of helped us in every single market that we participate in.
We asked Kevin Shaw from Wieland to help us kind of communicate the important understanding of when you start to go outbound in your simplification kind of understanding. Kevin described a company that was difficult to kind of communicate. You tripped on the words. It had a hyphen. It was difficult to put into a web address. And basically, when you, as accurate as it may be, when you have something that causes your marketplace to stumble or to be uncomfortable, that's a problem. And Kevin and his staff were wise enough to understand that just the very name was causing people to step backwards instead of forward into wanting to do business with them. So they did simplify the name, but what was more important than the simplification of the name was how they were able then to use that to springboard in a very simplified process what that name meant out into the marketplace. And I think it's really, really important that all of us take that opportunity to understand we have such passion about what we're doing that we want to tell everybody everything. And the reality is most people can understand just a few things. And in this particular case, less is more. We would much rather get a really large bump out of one thing than to get a marginal or no bump out of 100 things. So Kevin and the staff at Wieland were able to understand with a simplified name, which gave us the opportunity to create a more simplified message, which meant a clearer understanding in the marketplace what our simple deliverable and how we could be accountable to our customers was. It became amazing the results that they had. So the encouragement here is, instead of sending 100 messages about what you're doing, think about sending one.
You know, our plan now drives how I spend every day and who I give attention to, or what activities my attention are directed to. So it helps. I mean, it helps me focus, and it's easy for me to say, does it fit into what our critical fields are or not? If it's a no, it gets put to the bottom. Not that won't at some point address it, but it isn't, as far as the board and our executive committee are concerned, that isn't where I should be spending most of my time.
I've always enjoyed my time with Drew Mitchell. She's becoming an inspirational leader in her ability to adapt to the needs in the role that she has. Today is the leader of the Clinton County Economic Alliance. She knows how important it is that there be a simplified focus, that with 100 people coming at her with expectations, she would spend all of her time responding to 100 requests rather than really understanding what the true role of the alliance was. So she went through a process with her board. They were able to streamline the expectations of what things Drew should be working on to 4 distinct market segments. She was able to reduce her strategic plan to 1 page, 1 side of a sheet of paper. She keeps it with her and keeps it close by so she can always refer to it, can remind the board this is what we agreed was our simplified focus. But here's what's really important, not so that Drew can kind of sort through all the clutter that comes at an executive on a daily basis, but Drew's responsibility is to move the business forward with a greater understanding, a simplified approach to what our future road looks like. I can now put more energy towards those distinct things that we are working on. With a greater focus on the projects we need to be working on, we can make greater progress on those specific things and therefore have more success.
This week's episode is sponsored by Willpower Consulting. Whether it be pursuing new avenues in content delivery like podcasts or developing a sustainable content building strategy, Willpower Consulting is with you every step of the way. Get a dose of willpower at WilliamRCarlson.com or at William R. Carlson on Twitter.
So in conclusion, remember we can use Simplify to solve a problem, to create a unique message, or to really focus on helping our business move forward, as the 3 leaders that we listened to in this podcast helped us to understand. Remember, July is going to be where we continue to focus on Simplify. We've got a couple of great interviews coming up, one from Doug Small with the Experience Grand Rapids, as well as Jim Knight. And I think those 2 in particular will really help us all better understand how we can use Simplify to our advantage. So make sure you stay tuned. July is going to be an exciting month. Thanks for listening. And remember, if you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it pure reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.